So how have the first 2 years been for you?
Being sort of absolutely brilliant. So, like I say, the first year was just about sort of getting the experience and the knowledge behind us and sort of building my confidence up that way. And it was only really a year just gone that I'd like to say I'd quit the day job and I was like, nah, I'm a copywriter now. If anyone asks what I'm doing, I'm a copywriter. And yeah, so I think in the November, I had kind of got a big project on. That was one of the reasons as well that I was able to kind of leave my day job as well. December, I was looking at my books the other day. December, I didn't invoice a single penny. And then from January, it just started to kind of slowly picking up from there. And it's kind of just snowballed from there.
I must
Um,
I'd found something similar that with
yeah,
before I left my last job, I'd been approached by a client in America, in New York,
yeah,
funnily enough, who was a lady that I used to work with, who might be a future guest, hopefully. But almost, although I didn't accept or start, I had it kind of teed up. But then
right, yeah,
basically, so from the moment I decided not to take another job and set up on my own, I had a good piece of work in this. It's an American Kickstarter startup firm, which has done quite well. And that piece of work finished, I think, end of October, so virtually a year ago.
yeah,
Then I had a few bits and pieces, but nothing major. And then I
yeah.
think it was from March, it really kind of ramped up and then kept going. So I just
Obviously,
wanted to say that almost my experience was very similar. And
yeah,
I
because
know what I'm doing.
we were
Yeah.
both starting at the same time in terms of not having completely started a new job, but we were in the same boat, weren't we? In terms of we had everything there ready to go, and then we're both kind of just like all guns blazing, going ahead at the same point, like, wasn't it? Yeah,
Oh, cool. So between us, we probably know a fair few people who are freelancers, solopreneurs, or
yeah.
run, very small businesses. What challenges do you feel that people face when they first set up? And again, the reason of kind of wanting to talk about it is just because there will be other people who have just done it,
Yeah,
who aren't 2 years in, or I'm in theory a year in, but actually it's to help them kind of prep and not make the same mistakes, everyone else
yeah.
does.
No, definitely. I think in the early days, most of it is just comes down to confidence. I think because that's whether it's confidence, like you're scared to approach certain people for work,
Hmm.
whether someone shows an interest, but you're worried they may be too big for you or you're not going to be able to do it at the beginning. And I mean, I think that's one of the turning points when you have that confidence that you just start saying yes and believing in yourself. And a lot of the confidence I found is just getting your ducks in a row
Hmm.
at the beginning. It's just setting up your business bank accounts, getting some business cards printed. I know that people don't really use them anymore. For me, that was another step. I was just like just feeling and living the life of a business owner. Is that was one of the biggest things for me is getting your website sorted. So in the early days, you're obviously not going to be as busy with client work. So then you've got more time, even if you're doing it yourself, because not everyone's got the money to afford, like me, to write a website or a web developer to sort of develop it. Just getting a website together, all those little things, because a lot of the time as well, when you're first starting out, when you don't have your professional network,
Hmm.
the people you're talking to about work are your friends and family. And your friends and family often split into kind of two camps. It's some of your mates that are just big and like going, yeah, you can do it, mate. You can go for it. Whereas being a mate at the same time is kind of questioning it and being like, all
Hmm.
right, and showing a bit of an interest in that way and be like, oh, what are you going to do if this happens? Or what are you going to do with this? Because at the end of the day, your friends and family are sort of, they love you, they're worried about you at the same time. And I found as well sort of having that almost doubt there of people not really understanding what you're doing, or if they're not freelance themselves and they've always worked for someone else, they don't get it and they don't get how you're going to make money off it. Like my dad only really understands what I do now, and said the other day, and he was like, because it's been a year, and he was like, I didn't really understand what you were doing at first, and that's why I was kind of worried about you in terms of the money coming in and things like that. But again, it's having all these things like your website and stuff like that. When I show my mates my website, they
Hmm.
were all like, oh, look, yeah, it looks really good. So, like, do you know what I mean? So it's all about that kind of confidence at the beginning, definitely.
I must say one of the things that resonated with me, just because I did it yesterday,
Uh,
was actually to my business insurance. And
yeah,
it was, so when I first set up, I remember I applied to, it wasn't RTC North, but it was one of the local public sector bodies that said, look, we recommend people to help do growth consultancy and stuff.
yeah,
But as a minimum, you need to have £1 million professional indemnity insurance. So I was like, okay, no problem. Googled it, Hiscox, and I was paying about £10 a month on it. And then I got an email yesterday and it was to do with my renewal. And I was like, oh shit, it's been a year. It was, incredible how much it's gone.
Yeah.
But then ironically, that once you've actually got a business which generates cash, the whole mentality and mindset changes for me, because you reinvest the cash which you've earned, which I don't class as mine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's almost how within at a certain point, depending on how successful you are, the whole mindset of probably the first period is almost not struggling to survive, but kind of. And then you kind of find on your feet, get momentum, getting your regular clients just to keep it going. And then at some point you actually, in theory, have spare cash that you can invest in stupid stuff like this. And, but it's, I don't see it as my money, because it's part of the business. And that's where the game side of it comes in. Because I treat all of it as like a big game. And it's just, how can you create and drive and innovate and do stuff just because it's fun is the stupid thing for me.
No, definitely. And that's something that I've just kind of shifted to as well. Because like you say, I was in that mentality at first that when the money starts coming in, you're like, this is great. Like, I've got all this kind of spare cash that I've maybe never had before. And then you put it in your savings, and then like you say, you start looking and you think, well, if I invest in that, that's probably going to bring us XYZ returns further down the line. And little things like when you're first starting out, you obviously do everything yourself. Like you do your own books, you do your own admin, everything like that. But then the busier you get, the more you realize, if I've got more time to do client work, I'm getting paid more for that than I am for paying someone else to like take certain jobs over. But it is really hard at first, because you go from thinking, well, I did have all this money in my bank every month, but now it's, say, $1,000, whatever, a month less by the time you have all your different fees and stuff involved. And it's like, well, why am I spending it on that? And then it's like, it is getting in that mindset of, no, I'm not spending the money, it's investing it on certain things. Like, I've just started working with a new business coach, and that's going to be monthly money coming in for stuff like that as well, that I didn't have to pay him for. I've just started working with an accountant because I've recently moved to a limited company. I didn't want any of the stress of having to do any of that sort of stuff. Like, so yeah, it's like, say, it's one of those things, but it is at the same time, I've tried to remind myself, like, oh, I'm paying this out, like remind myself that this is the ideal situation that a year ago I would have absolutely bit my own arm off to be in a position where I'm thinking, oh, I'm investing in this X, Y, and Z. Because when you first start out, you're just worrying about making ends meet and paying the bills. It's as simple as that. So yeah, definitely.
No, cool. But this is what one of the reasons why I like doing these, because obviously they stay on YouTube, but it's the fact that I can look back and see the progression.
Yeah.
And it's, so I'm a year in and I've got ideas of where I'd love to be a year two.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've no idea if I'm going to do it, but I've got faith that I can keep figuring it out and keep blagging it and just keep going.
And that is one of the things as well, when you first start out and you connect with people on LinkedIn, or you meet them at networking events, and you see someone and you're just like, he or she, they've got it figured out. Like they know exactly what they're doing. Like it's a really slick operation that they've got going. And then you sort of get to know them a little bit and you chat to them. And then you realize that they're just like you, but they're a bit further on. They don't have it all figured out. They're still developing. They're still working on stuff as well. And it is that type of mindset. And people say like everyone's blagging it. I don't think everyone's blagging it in a sense, but everyone is sort of on a journey. I suppose no one is the finished article. Everyone's still working on it. And there's kind of levels to it. Like some of the copywriters that are classed as like A-level, sort of A-star copywriters, if you spoke to them, there's no way they'd consider themselves that great. They're looking above that as well. So yeah, definitely in terms of, like you're saying, blagging it and sort of developing, it's like, that's just how it is. I think everyone's kind of learning and sort of progressing as they go on.